Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, it's our monthly conversation with Dr. Roger McEowen, who is an Ag and Tax Law Specialist at the Washburn School of Law. We've got a lot of catching up to do. A lot of different things have been going on. He's going to share his thoughts. We also have features from the Kansas Soybean Commission, Kansas Department of Agriculture, and Kansas Grain Sorghum, along with a weekly update from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com.
Well, our guest this week will have an extended conversation with Dr. Roger McEowen for the Washburn School of Law. The Supreme Court is in their summer break, but lots of other things going on with agriculture throughout the legal system. We will talk with him when we return on the Kansas Ag Report.
The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com.
And joining us is Dr. Roger McEowen, Ag and Tax Law Specialist at Washburn School of Law. He joins us every month. Good morning, Dr. McEowen.
Good to be with you, Ken. Good morning.
All right, there's a lot to talk about. I think last time we talked, they just kind of wrapped up the SCOTUS for the summer break, and so there's a lot of things to talk about there. There's still more things we need to talk about. We just haven't got to. There's been a lot going on with the Supreme Court, but one topic I want to talk about, we know a farmer themselves that has expanded their operation, say, in the Southern Hemisphere, down in South America, and so on. You need to remember to have a good structure, isn't it? When you go down there and farm kind of outside the U.S., that the good old IRS will catch up.
Yeah, it's not only your structure, and this one's not a Supreme Court opinion, although we've had, as you said, several very significant U.S. Supreme Court opinions that can bear one way or another on agriculture this past session. But what this involves is the issue of foreign bank accounts and the need to report those foreign bank accounts to a branch of the Treasury Department, which is the Financial Crimes Network, which is tied in with the IRS. And what that says is if you have a foreign bank account, outside of the United States, this could be Canada, it could be Mexico. And this is a big deal when I go into North Dakota and I do tax conferences in North Dakota. They have farmers that have Canadian bank accounts or are farming in Canada. And so it's a huge issue. But what that rule says, and this came in after the 9/11 attacks, this new law, and it says if you have a foreign account, and at any point during the year it has a balance of at least $10,000, then you have to report that account at any time. If it had if it exceeded that 10,000 threshold at any point during the year, you have to report that account. And if you don't report that to the Treasury, the penalties can be enormous. And if you're determined to have willfully failed to file, the penalties and the fines can exceed the amount in the account. It is terrible. In this most recent case, we had an individual that had Swiss bank accounts. He died. His widow didn't know about all of the accounts. She did as they were doing the estate, and he had failed to file the FBAR, the form, the FinCEN form that has to be filed. And she got it caught up quickly. They were delinquent, but she got the forms filed delinquently. IRS came in and wanted to hit her with the willful penalty, and it was in excess of $20 million in penalties. Would have just completely drained everything. And the court said, no, she did her best. Yes, the FBAR requirement does not abate on death, so it's still there. It becomes a burden of the estate. and the executor is going to have to clean that up, which was her. And they said she did as soon as she found out about it. So she's not liable for the willful failure to file. She still has to pay some penalties, but the estate escaped the huge one. So again, we circle back to the lesson on this one, and that is anytime you have a foreign bank account, and we know there are farming operations in Brazil, U.S. farmers in farming in South America and Canada and elsewhere, you're going to open a bank account, you've got that reporting requirement.
Right. All right. And similar to that a little bit is, we do a lot of work via contracts, and you have some thoughts on, you probably better read the fine print before you sign.
Oh yeah, I had an egregious one this summer, and it was horrible. It was an older couple wondering why the bank was calling in a note of about $3 million, and they said we're current on our payments. We just refinanced with the local bank about 3.5 years ago. We've got 30 years to pay this off. We've made the first 3 payments. And I asked them some questions and determined that, yes, they had consolidated a number of loans with the bank. And I said, what'd you sign? And when I saw what they signed, they sent it to me. They thought they had a fixed interest rate of 4.25% for the next 30 years. And they knew what the payment was. And they couldn't understand why the bank was calling the loan in. And Ken, what they signed with the local bank was a document that said, yeah, you get 4.25% interest for the first 5 years. Then it becomes a variable rate. And I think what the bank was seeing was when they looked at their financial information that was submitted and they look at crop prices, they're thinking, okay, they're barely making this payment now. We're going to exercise our rights under another clause that was in this promissory note, this lending agreement that the couple signed without reading it carefully. And that gave the bank the right to call the note at any time without cause. And so the bank did. And I think what they were seeing was, yeah, they're barely making the payment now, but when in a year and a half, when that rate doubles on them or more than doubles on them, they're going to be in trouble. We're just going to take it now. And so they were left with not too good options. One was, I told them, I said, the best thing that you could possibly do is get the bank to forbear and say that you're current and go to a different lender and get that note, borrow money under better terms, get that one paid off. They don't have to do that, though. The bank doesn't have to do that. You could mediate the dispute or you could file Chapter 12 bankruptcy. Right. And that's tough. And it just points out people need to read documents before they sign them or take them to someone, pay a little bit of money and have that analyzed for you.
Dr. Roger McEowen is an ag and tax law specialist at the Washburn School of Law. We're going to take a break. We'll come back with more in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
Dr. Roger McEowen for the Washburn School of Law joins us once again this month. We've been talking about kind of some cleanup of some different things going on as the Supreme Court is done now for next little bit before the next session starts. But one of those things I think that we talk a lot about when we talk about transitioning on the farm and ranch, maybe a family member, maybe somebody else should say, well, I'll pay you a little bit less wage, but you can gain this, quote, sweat equity. And maybe that's not, you've got some thoughts on that as far as what exactly works and what doesn't.
Yeah, here we go again, Ken, talking about informal arrangements in agriculture and the belief that, well, I'm going to put in my time, I'm going to put in this labor. I may actually commit capital to it too, on the basis that this will eventually transition to me with no supporting documentation in place. We don't have any documents that support or give you any right, any legal right to any assets after the parents retire, or any rights to transition, such as through a buy-sell agreement. We don't have anything to cover the possibility that you might die early. And how would you be compensated for all of the effort that you made for perhaps many years and put into that farm? And so, but that's common. I see that. It's somewhat common, I suppose, but I see it more often than I would like to. But reliance on trust and informality in agriculture, it is a big deal. But don't rely on sweat equity. You can't spend sweat equity, and that's a key point. And I try to emphasize that with farmers when I talk with them.
All right. Well, Dr. McEowen, there's lots of things that you have thoughts on and have done research. People have asked you questions. How can they find some more of these and the things we didn't get to this month?
Well, these topics I post on my blog, which they can find on washburnlaw.edu/WALTR, also on Ag Manager through the K-State Ag Econ Department.
All right. Well, there's so many things. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about next month as well. Gearing up for that first Monday in October when the new session starts. We may even get a preview if agriculture is going to be kind of like it was this last session, and lots of things that could impact them. So as always, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ken.
Dr. Roger McEowen for the Washburn School of Law. He is an ag and tax law specialist and has joined us as he does once a month here on the Kansas Ag Report. We'll be back with more after this.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
This week, the Kansas Department of Agriculture has been enjoying National Farmers Market Week. Although actually KDA and our From the Land of Kansas program celebrates farmers markets all year round. We know that many of you have joined us this summer, going to your local farmers market to pick up fresh produce and other goods produced right here in Kansas. By visiting a farmers market in Kansas, you're supporting farmers, ranchers, and producers of all kinds, along with supporting the local economy and helping those markets to strengthen relationships between producers and consumers. KDA recognizes the importance of having quality farmers markets in communities throughout the state. So that's why we work with over 100 registered farmers markets across Kansas to help them thrive and enrich local communities. Through our ag marketing team, KDA works to provide regular newsletters, marketing resources, and updates on food safety best practices to farmers markets. KDA also assists with promoting those markets and providing state and regional workshops. You can find an interactive map that will direct you to your nearest farmers market at FromTheLandOfKansas.com. At that site, you will find information on all of the markets across the state, as well as other goods produced in the wonderful state of Kansas. And the From the Land of Kansas Facebook and Instagram accounts can provide you with even more content, including recipes, features, giveaways, and more about farmers markets and other Kansas products and businesses across the state. So start with From the Land of Kansas online, and then get out and find a local market and browse the booths, take home some fresh produce, grab a snack, and maybe even hear some live entertainment as you enjoy a farmers market near you this summer.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Green sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Hi everyone, I'm Maddie Meyer, Director of Communications and Outreach at Kansas Grain Sorghum. Hi, I'm Rodrigo Onofre. I'm the row crop specialist here at Kansas State University.
And we're here to talk to you a little bit about a new series called Sorghum Connection. And this program is brought to you by the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission, K-State Research and Extension, and the K-State Department of Plant Pathology. And this program will bring forth a series of field trials in schools all about preventing stalk rot diseases in sorghum. Rodrigo, why don't you talk a little bit more about what you're focusing on with these trials?
Yeah, absolutely. So stalk rots is one of the silent yield robbers that we have here in Kansas. We estimate about 5% every year. But depending on the field, we can see yield loss of up to 50%, right? Some of the things that we've been tackling now, it's cropping system, fungicides, and as well variety selection, right, that we're looking into right now.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And a really unique aspect about the Sorghum Connection series is that it's put on by farmers for farmers. And so this means that farmers will be deciding the topics and the speakers that will be presenting at these events.
And very exciting too, because in the winter we'll be hosting another series from December 4th to the 6th of winter schools, again, for farmers, from farmers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And be sure to join us for the Sorghum Connection Field Days on September 4th in Bavaria, Kansas, September 11th in Dighton, Kansas, and September 18th in Russell, Kansas. And for more information, you can visit www.ksgrainsorghum.org.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the soybean checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
Soybeans are the only crop that contain all 8 amino acids, which makes it a complete protein, essential for human health. Kansas Soybean partners with organizations such as the World Initiative for Soy and Human Health, or WISH, and the U.S. Soybean Export Council, or USEC, to promote the use of U.S. soybeans in international markets. WISH, a program of the American Soybean Association, was founded 24 years ago and works in developing and emerging markets. WISH tracks protein demand and defines trade opportunities in markets that show the most long-term potential. The program guides and fosters businesses' development with local entrepreneurs and connects businesses to market systems across the globe. Bob Hazelwood, treasurer for WISH and a Kansas Soybean commissioner, traveled with WISH to Ghana to see how the program is assisting with the poultry sector and the aquaculture industry in the country. He interacted with local poultry and aquaculture businesses to see how soy was being used in the animals' diets, to later be used for human consumption. U.S. Soy's program, USEC, focuses on attaining market access and elevating preference of U.S. soy products. USEC was established in 2005 and works in 80-plus countries internationally. Lance Rizak, USEC chairman and Kansas Soybean commissioner, recently traveled to Nigeria with USEC to see firsthand how the program builds relationships with international markets. Nigeria currently has no soybean imports, but USEC wanted to build trust with purchasers, as Nigeria is quickly growing and has a need for more protein. These programs' efforts in international markets and advocating for the use of U.S. soy creates a demand for U.S. soybeans. This demand is crucial to the future of U.S. soybean farmers. More than half of every crop produced crosses U.S. borders to foreign markets. U.S. soy currently has the fewest trade barriers of all agricultural exports, and the industry will continue to take advantage of that access. For more information about WISH, visit wish.org. For more information about USEC, visit usec.org.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
The Sand County Foundation, in partnership with Ranchland Trust of Kansas and the Kansas Association of Conservation Districts, has announced 3 finalists for the Kansas Leopold Conservation Award. Given in honor of renowned conservationist Aldo Leopold, the $10,000 award recognizes landowners dedicated to the management of soil health, water quality, and wildlife habitat. This year's finalists are Barbie Ranch of Protection, Janus Farms near Cherryville, and Glenn and Barbara Walker of Brookville. Bill Barbie rotationally grazes his cow-calf herd in Clark and Comanche counties. His year-round grazing system, supported by a solar-powered pipeline watering system, increased the carrying capacity and stocking rate by 40%. Prescribed fire and tree removal also has improved habitat for wildlife, including the lesser prairie chicken. Bill Estep of Janus Farms has enhanced wildlife habitat and biodiversity on his Montgomery County farmland with prescribed burning and rotational grazing. He has hosted botanical and endangered wildlife studies at his farm and established pollinator habitats of native flowering plants. The Walkers are improving soil health, wildlife habitat, and water distribution on their properties in Ellsworth, Lincoln, Rice, Russell, and Saline counties. The use of rotational grazing and proper grassland management has improved habitat for the greater prairie chicken, turkey, and deer populations. Additionally, their investment in the removal of invasive red cedars has improved water resources on their pasture land. The 2024 Kansas Leopold Conservation Award will be presented in November at the Kansas Association of Conservation Districts Convention in Wichita.
Rural families are built different. You deal with the highs and lows of rural living. You support your family, your church, and your community. You often work sun up to sun down, and you do these things because you love it. But life isn't always easy.
Sometimes as farmers or ranchers, you're supposed to be this big tough person, you know, like I've got this ground, I've got these cattle, you're not supposed to struggle. Everybody's struggling. And sometimes it's just having that conversation with a friend for them to soften a little bit, to be able to have an open conversation.
There is help for anyone struggling with mental health. Text or call 988 to be connected to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Talk to someone. Above all, don't suffer in silence. For more resources, visit kfb.org/Rural Minds Matter.
Good morning. This is Jake McCall with Pinion Ag. There have been no shortage of volatility this past week, which actually began at the start of August. Stock markets, currencies, treasuries, and others reacted in a big way to a disappointing jobs report, as well as interest rate actions taken by the Bank of Japan. All of this led to concerns of a recession on Wall Street and a broad and violent sell-off as green turned to fear, with the VIX, the stock market's so-called fear index, trading to levels not seen since the COVID scare. Since then, the markets have attempted to stabilize, though there is still plenty of uncertainty as to the path forward. Cattle have been particularly affected in the commodity space, as that market has a long correlation to the equities as a loose indicator for demand. Cash trade in both feeders and fats has been lower so far this week, even as the cutout remains solid. Chain speeds at the plant have been slower as packers attempt to keep beef values propped up, and feedlots try to maintain leverage as best they can. Grain space so far has been much more muted, even as it sells off, pressured by ideal weather conditions and demand concerns. For corn, we continue to probe below the $4 mark, with exports for new crop disappointing to the downside of expectations at 249,000 tons. Soybean exports were markedly better, with both new and old crop sales above the range of trade guesses, though they also face headline resistance with news from South American farmers that plan to increase acres yet again for another record crop, although long-term weather could play a factor in yield expectations. The wheat market has been very quiet as of late, with reports of a Ukrainian assault on areas of western Russia, something we had not seen since the war started. In outside markets, crude oil has shown a high degree of volatility, trading between $78 and $72 per barrel since the start of August, with the dollar similarly active in its search for fair value. If you have any questions or would like to have a conversation about risk management in your operation, please feel free to give us a call at 888-452-8751. I'm Jake McCall with Pinion Ag, and I hope you have a great day.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
That'll do it for our show this week. Be social with us online at kansasagreport.net or our social media channels. I'm Ken Rogers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on the Kansas Ag Report.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.